My name is Joshua Reeves, and I'm here to introduce a brand new podcast called Leaders on Leaders. What is Leaders on Leaders? It is a podcast for all things leadership. We're going to talk about, for this discussion, leadership being how to inspire and motivate teammates so that they can work towards a common goal in a strategic, visionary manner. We're not going to talk about management, which is, for this discussion, how to get results from people using processes and procedures and checklists and that kind of detailed focus. So today we have a honored guest, Doug Van Meter, spelled with a V, who is a Senior Vice President of George Butler Associates. So that's a mouthful, so we're going to refer to them as GBA for the day. And they are an architectural and engineering firm. So Doug, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So I've been at GBA for 24 years now. I started actually as an intern. So I went to K-State, the best school in the whole United States.
For our United States viewers, which K-State?
This is Kansas State, just to clarify. Architectural engineering program. And again, started here as an intern and kind of worked my way up in the ranks just by focusing on what needed to be done, what was not working, and trying to figure out how to start making it work better. Kept progressing, kind of same focus, stayed focused on what clients were looking for, what was working for them, what wasn't working for them. And over a period of time, ended up being principal in the mission critical market, and then grew into board of directors and now senior vice president. So same type of thing, just doing a little different focus along the way.
Excellent.
So how long have we known each other though?
We have known each other easily 7 or 8 years, but we've been closely working together on leadership initiatives for, I would say, 4.
Sounds about right.
All right.
Yep. Good.
So we got a ringer here today. So, so today's leadership Q&A, we're going to cover 2 things. 1, what does leadership look like in the A&E industry? And 2, how can young people grow into leaders and pursue leadership opportunities in the A&E world, and how do they hone their skills? So 2 different real focuses here. So we'll dive into the first one. Doug, you're on the hot seat. What does a leader look like in the A&E industry, architectural and engineering
It looks
industry?
like you already have notes of what you want me to say.
That's semi-accurate, but
What if I don't say those things?
we're here to talk.
Okay.
Let me have it. What do you got?
The biggest problem with the word leader is it means different things to everyone, obviously. Like you were talking about with manager before, supervisor, there's a lot of different words that mean a lot of different versions to everyone. And so that's been my struggle with that word and all those other types of words like it. It's always meaning different things. And so asking people what they really mean by leader is always an issue for me. But I see the biggest thing with a leader is looking for the opportunity of how things could be as compared to what they are now, and then working on building that team and to actually strive to the future.
Future focused.
Very much so.
Yeah, I would agree. I think as I think about your progression through your career that I've observed, it went from being a typical architect and engineering practice where you're focused on details, you're focused on designing things and working away with your teammates to design a building, design a solution. But what I've seen you do is veer out of that role and set aside some of that detailed work and focus more on the people. And you spend a lot of time, which I admire and appreciate. You spend a lot of time talking to people. I would say 80% of your time is spent talking and coaching and mentoring people, and maybe only 20% of your time spent doing actual detailed, busy work. I
The
almost
family
said doing work.
Yeah. The family suffers for that because by the time I get home, I don't want to talk anymore.
There you go. Yeah. So that's what I've seen you go through, that transition of setting aside the management duties and focusing more on the people. So tell me a little bit about your perspective on how to work with people, groom people, mentor, coach, inspire, and motivate people.
Yeah, so for me, it's been trying to understand the other person first. If you don't understand where they're coming from and kind of their baggage for that day, that month, or just past history, having that communication with them and have it be effective is never going to work.
Communication.
So listening is always kind of where I'm starting. So kind of, starting out with how their mindset is that day. At the same time, just building on all those past conversations, I may be in a place ready to move forward with an initiative that they've only thought about for 2-3 minutes. They're totally not ready for that. So I need to acknowledge I gotta slow down.
To be fair, Doug is actually telling me that because I'm super guilty of doing that. So
Yeah, that is a problem.
message received, Doug. Message received. So you said two things there that I think are critical to point out. One, communication, and two, listening. So in my mind, I picked this up. It's an old Chinese proverb, I think.
Oh, this will be great.
It's an old Chinese proverb, and it goes like this: 95% of the world's problems boil down to communication. That's right.
That is reasonable.
So the thing that we work really hard at here in the GBA group of companies is active listening skills. So we believe that's a huge part of our communication style and improvement and growth. So you hit on two critical things about leadership: listening and communication.
So another one that recently has been coming up is, and I don't have great language for it, so maybe you can help me with that, but it's trying to identify that issue or that problem, but then keep working with the team to actually get it to the end, rather than planning out the first part and then just letting it vaporize and never move forward with it.
Yeah. So leadership also has to do with not managing your team, but monitoring your team.
Yeah.
Empowering them, and then getting them to come back to the table with solutions and progress, and being able to monitor them.
And that's the painful part for sure.
Yeah, that's the hard part, because as a leader, you have to follow up and make sure you're monitoring progress, but the important thing is not managing them and telling them what to do. Empower your people so that they can take on bigger jobs and be more successful and
what you just
more
said there,
engaged.
that's a shift from how a lot of the world operates.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's really effective and staff retention and just growth opportunities for sure. It's definitely the right way to be going.
So, key point on this topic, and you were just talking about the rest of the world operates this way. So, the way we talk a lot about leadership is because, and I'm going to use engineering for this conversation.
Josh always makes fun of engineering because he's on the construction side.
That's right.
And we hate each other.
So I used to say before I started working hand in glove with engineers, I used to say, because you're a great superintendent in the construction world, or because you're a great project manager in the construction world, does not make you a good leader of people. So now that I'm surrounded by engineers, I say, because you're a fantastic engineer, that does not make you a leader of people. That just makes you a really detail-oriented, fantastic engineer. So
it may mean that you're also a great leader.
it could mean that, but
It's just not a guarantee.
to be determined.
Yes.
So I'm going to veer off of our two questions because what you just said there made me think of something. So, do you think leadership is a born with trait? Do you think
That's a tough one. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah.
As I've been trying to grow various teams. I think it's a little bit of both.
okay?
There's some of it is just innate, just built into people, but it definitely can be grown or can be squashed depending on the environment. And so, I think it's both, but there needs to be that spark of that type of mentality to be able to start growing from that.
Yeah.
If that's not there at all, it would be really tough to create a great leader from that person.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Some people have some innate qualities, some innate traits, but I think that takes some honing. And so now I'm going to make fun of engineers again just for a second.
Thank you.
Is that all right?
Soon I'm going to come up with a great construction joke.
I'll give you some. I've heard them all. I'll give you some.
Okay, give me one.
One, how do you know a contractor is lying?
Because they're talking?
Their lips are moving, yeah. So I'm going to tell a little joke about how do you know which engineer is introverted or extroverted.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I hope I don't mess this up for those of you who've heard this. So when you pass an engineer in the hall, the extroverted engineers look at your shoes, not their shoes.
Nice.
Yeah. So that being said,
You're not going to make any friends with either of those jokes.
I know. So that being said, I think part of the innate qualities of a leader have to do with their ability to speak and be comfortable speaking to others, being able to communicate with a variety of different people. I used to say when I was a young project manager in the construction world, and people would say, "What does a project manager do?" I would say, "Wear a lot of hats." We have to communicate with people from the C-suite all the way down to the guy in the field that's working with his tools. And if you can't communicate top to bottom and back and forth in a very quick and efficient manner, then you're probably going to fail in that role. So being a great communicator, first and foremost, will lead you into a leadership position, would you say?
Completely agree. Even just as I was starting out, just fresh from Kansas State, trying to figure out how to talk to clients, that are in the office as compared to talking to the guy installing the conduit out in the field. You have to have that wide range of ability to communicate with both and bond with both.
Yeah.
To be able to move whatever forward.
Yeah, I would agree. Any other comments on question one? Anything else come to mind that we need to
No, I don't think
kick
so.
around
I think
the
I'm
table?
good there.
Okay, we're ready to move on to question number 2. Are you ready?
I am. I've got my number 2 pencil ready.
Okay. The next question is, how can young people grow into leadership roles in the A&E world? And that feels like there's some honing of skills and
Sure.
traits and those kinds of things.
So I guess I can talk a little bit maybe about how I did that and see if that makes sense for others too. As you're doing each of the various jobs that you're given as a young engineer, doing those to your best of your ability. Pretty straightforward. People say that all the time, but it totally is true. And actually owning that task, trying to use the resources around you. So as you're starting out, you're leading yourself. From there, you start to lead other people in your discipline. So if you're an electrical engineer, you may have a couple other electrical engineers working with you. So you, by doing technical work, you're doing it in a way that is leading a very small team, and then just kind of keep progressing from there. So that's how I've been approaching the technical part of engineering, that has then just naturally transitioned into full on of leading people.
Okay. What do you think you can coach them on regarding how they communicate with the different
all of that
teammates?
comes down to communication.
Okay.
So for yourself, when you're just leading yourself, it's being honest with yourself. Well, what are you actually good at, and what is probably not the things you should be doing?
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out what to peel off and have others to do, because you either don't have the skills or don't have the desire or don't even think that way.
Yeah. That's desire is a great word. So you can you can take somebody that's been doing the job for 10 years and doing it really well and loves what they do and promote them into a higher level. And if they don't have the desire, if they're not willing to adapt and change and kind of recreate themselves and how they operate to go to that next level, then you're kind of sunk, right?
And
could be sunk.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, everyone thinks what they don't like doing is what everyone else doesn't like doing, and that's never the case. There's always someone else that likes to do the thing you hate doing. And so trying to figure out what that right fit is throughout your entire career is perfect, and being vocal about it.
Yeah.
Not in an angry, aggressive way, but
Not like a contractor.
Exactly. In an engineering type of way.
Yeah. A rational and calm, communicated way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so in light of the young people question, we have a guest star. Should I say guest star? A guest.
I think she's a star.
Okay, a guest star. Her name is Taylor Latham. She's a new grad or a recent grad. So we're going to let Taylor introduce herself and ask some questions that Mr. Van Meter and I can address.
I'm Taylor Latham. I went to Mizzou and got my degree in mechanical engineering, and now I am a mechanical designer here at GBA. What advice would you give a new hire on transitioning their leadership experience in school to being a new hire at this company?
This sounds like one for you.
Can you read
Can you
the
remember
question?
back that far?
Yeah. Can you read the question one more time?
What advice would you give a new hire on transitioning their leadership experience in school to being a new hire at this company?
Excellent question. As I think back, easily 100 years ago.
Yeah,
when
I was guessing.
When I was in school. So I played some leadership roles in school. I was homecoming chairman, and we had parades and floats and displays, and so I worked with my dear friend Paul Sook. We were co-chairs. And
Is that because you couldn't become king?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Yeah. So I use that ability to communicate with a bunch of different people and different goals, different projects. And because it was so much and I was taking a full load of school, I didn't have the time to micromanage people. So I kind of just encouraged them and motivated them. So I think taking that experience and moving that to my career transitioned nicely, but I'm also somewhat able to wear all those different hats of communication and I don't know from a young engineer's perspective if that kind of leadership
I think there's
translates.
a lot of parallels for sure there.
So?
The difference is you're coming into a different environment. And so in college, you come across as, as you stay at college for a while, you're kind of the expert from a student perspective. And then as you transition into the work environment, you're not the expert again. You're starting over as a freshman.
Yeah.
And so, but you're a lot smarter than you were last time you were a freshman. And so, by doing that, trying to stay humble, utilizing those skills, but in a way that realizing that the people around you probably have been doing that for a pretty long time and may have some really good thoughts on how to do whatever the thing is that's trying to be done. But at the same time, it could always be better. So it's how you're presenting those ideas that they're coming across as possibilities, or have you tried, rather than this is the way we're going to do it. And that will then grow your relationship with what will become your future mentors also.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think being able to be comfortable not knowing everything, being able to ask lots of questions, and then at some point when you've asked lots of questions, being able to transition that into coaching and mentoring your teammates and the people around you. I think that's what really stands out to me as I think of some of our young leaders. They ask lots of questions. They don't assume they know everything. They're humble, And then once they have grown in their career and their knowledge base, I see them helping the other young engineers around them and coaching them, but also speaking and communicating at a higher level.
Yeah, and then to add on to that, a big one is being able to speak your mind in a way that people can actually receive that as well.
Correct, yeah.
Everyone's got great ideas, but a lot of times in the engineering field, if it's not related to technical ideas, people may feel like that they shouldn't share them or don't share them.
Yeah. Taylor, what is your next question?
How do you know someone is ready for a leadership position or role? How can someone show you they're ready?
That's a great question. The biggest problem we've had with that, I don't want to start out with the negative, but I'm starting out with the negative, is trying to clarify what is leadership position role. It's how we started at the beginning of this. And so a less experienced staff member has an opinion of what that is as compared to a senior leader has an opinion of what that is, and trying to get on the same page of what that actually means has been the way that we've been in mission critical market the most successful with that.
Yeah.
So trying to actually really talk through, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? Can you expand on that? All of those open-ended questions to really get to the bottom of the 5 whys, get to the bottom of what each party is actually meaning is a great way to start.
Yeah, I would, as I think about that question and how we can tell when they're ready to transition into leadership roles, in the construction side, as you see project managers, they're in the details, they're in the weeds, they're working on building the building, working with the subcontractors, and you can start to see after they've done that a few years, you can start to see some of them continue to go to the next project and be working the details, and some you can see taking more and more opportunities to coach and mentor other people. And I think for me, when I think about somebody being ready to go to the next level, they're building teammates, whether they're on that particular project or not. They're communicating and building a rapport with people, and I think 2 E words come to mind. They start to display empathy
Yep.
and emotional intelligence, and I believe that as they grow in their career and they start to develop the ability to communicate differently and show emotional intelligence to deal with problems, and they're monitoring and coaching people to do more and to be challenged more, that's where I see their transition from being a detailed manager to a leadership transition. And to be clear, there are roles in your career where you're doing,
Both.
you're 20% manager, 80% leader, or you're 80% manager, 20% leader, and that's that transition where you're moving out of the details and into the motivation and inspiration of others to get them to be empowered and thrive, right?
Definitely. And to even go a little bit different direction to expand on that, when you start getting glimpses of people looking at the bigger picture, looking about how these 2 or 3 jobs impact the client's budget as a whole, or the client's opinion of a company as a whole, or if they're starting to look at how a mechanical engineering staffing big picture actually all meshes together, that's starting to get quick glimpses that they have the ability to get out of the specific technical skills and actually start taking on bigger leadership roles.
Yeah, you just said something that I say all the time. Let's zoom out for a minute. Let's zoom out for a minute.
Definitely.
Let's look at the bigger picture. Yeah.
And some of that is a skill that has to be taught, and some people are just great at doing it. So it's a little bit of both on that. So it's for some people it won't come naturally, and it's always important to try to see if that's something that can be taught.
Yeah, I would agree. But your comment earlier about some people are really good at one thing and not so good at another.
Yeah.
Leadership is that way. If you're really good at zooming in and you struggle to zoom out, then you may not be a leader, and maybe you thrive and enjoy being zoomed in, and that's okay.
Yeah, and
that's
I think the key word there is may. It's not a guarantee,
right.
but definitely something that needs to be looked at a lot more in depth.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you, Taylor. Excellent questions, and we appreciate you coming on board. In summary, if we can summarize the important takeaways from today's Q&A, I heard communication and listening.
Definitely.
Huge, right? What was the Chinese proverb?
Something about 95% of the world's problems.
Okay. Communication and listening, probably the biggest. We talked a little bit towards the end about emotional intelligence and empathy and having those human skills for that kind of aids communication, right?
Right.
I think the biggest takeaway may be, drum roll, the biggest takeaway may be not everyone is cut out to be a leader, just like not everyone is cut out to be a fantastic engineer. Right?
Definitely.
And there's nothing
Or
wrong.
a contractor.
Yeah, thank you. So there's nothing wrong with being a fantastic engineer and doing great work and thriving there. Right?
Or a contractor.
Or thank you. Or, evolving into a leader. So I think those are kind of the primary takeaways. Would you agree?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
So fantastic discussion. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, we hope this will be a series, not just with Doug, but with other people. So thank you for participating, and stay tuned for our next special guest. We appreciate you watching.